Visibility, value, and voice. The case for LGBTQ media only on today's focus group with special guest, LGBTQ expert Todd Evans of Rivendell Media.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. In our 17th year here on The Focus Group, Mr. Nash.
17. It's beyond Sweet 16, right?
Beyond. And before we started recording, I had mentioned to you that I was using AI to come up with some of the headlines for our teasers of the show, and this one I thought was a bit long. And I don't know if I said, can you give me? I told the AI
Chatbot
who was on the show today, and could you make it a simple, simple headline for a podcast or a video cast? And it came up with the visibility, value, and voice, which I thought was cool. The case for LGBTQ media only on today's focus group with special guest, LGBTQ expert Todd Evans of Rivendell Media. I guess okay, but long for a headline to write on something, right?
Even though you asked for brevity, this is what you got, right?
Yeah. So, Todd will be joining us. He's a friend here on the show, and we both have known Todd personally and professionally for many years. He'll be joining us on our Shop Talk segment to talk about particularly some of the opportunities and the confusion people seem to have with DEI versus actual marketing to the consumer, LGBTQ consumer specifically. Todd's an expert with local media as well, so he'll talk to us about that. Beforehand, we've got our usual banter, and then a Caught My Eye, which John and I both pick a story that we discuss. We visit with our friends at Deep Discount, talk about some movies we recommend. And then, of course, one of our signature segments, the business birthday, which I think we might have done this guy a long time ago, but I don't remember. I didn't find him in the database, but I do remember it.
Tim, this was new to me.
Was it new to you? Okay, you got a better memory than I do, so you would know.
I looked at it and I'm like, I don't think we did him before.
I don't know why I thought so, but I could be wrong.
I'm going to mention something. We happened upon a documentary on the CW network on Saturday night, and we literally caught it at the very beginning, and it was called Freddie Mercury, The Final Act. When it originally debuted in 2021, it's a BBC documentary. It was a two-parter, so it's about an hour and a half. And I got to tell you, Tim, watching this documentary, considering the current political climate we're in, really brought home some how far we've come, how far we need to go. Freddie Mercury was part of Queen, and he died of AIDS and HIV/AIDS, and some of the stuff in the documentary was really troubling to Bob and myself because it brought up a lot of memories of what that time period was like. And the stuff that I fixated on was all the rhetoric that used to go around HIV/AIDS. Well, it's the lifestyle. They deserve it. Remember all the language that was circulated about this? And the band members, the Queen band members, loved Freddie. They were behind him all the way, and they showed a couple of clips of the band members on some of the British talk shows after he passed. And they would ask questions. Well, he had this disease. You knew he was gay, whatever. And they pushed back. They were like, "Wait a minute. This is everybody's problem. It's not just this or that." But the part that just really sank in with me is it just brought me back to that time period, and it was something you say all the time. Why is it that the LGBTQ community, and back then it was gay and lesbian, now it's LGBTQ with the trans people in the target for sure. Why has this always been the group that you go to take a crap on, that you can kick around? You could be disrespect. You could be everything to them, and yet people are still like, they're gay, they deserve it, whatever. It really just. Bob and I were very somber after the show. And one part after Freddie passed, the first 2 weeks of his passing, all the headlines were how amazing he was, what a great musician, how he transformed rock and roll. And then slowly but surely, the headlines began to change. Well, he probably deserved it. He had this lifestyle. And that's when some of the band members interviewed in 2021 talked about how disgusting it was and how the press was so horrible. And, and then one guy said, this is Rupert Murdoch's world. This is what he lives on. He feeds the red meat to the masses, and it would be different if he didn't do this. But we finished the documentary, and I was like, wow, is it 2025 or is it 1986 again? You know what I mean?
Was this the documentary that had, did it end with the Live Aid performance, or is that a different one?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Okay. I think I'd seen it. And
now, if you're referring to Live Aid, that's when after he passed, right? And Annie Lennox was on, and Guns N' Roses, like all these bands were on, but it was Freddie had already passed when they did Live Aid, I think, right?
I don't think maybe I'm wrong.
But I get it confused with when I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, which was the telling of the Queen story with Freddie Mercury.
That's the one I was thinking of.
That concert he did at the end. So
this was different.
This is before he passed.
Okay.
That concert was before he passed. This one was the one they did for AIDS research and HIV awareness.
I'm having a Joe Biden senior moment, which you're not allowed to have.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody, that was the one. No, it was a difficult time, and we were often schooled by Michelangelo Signorelli. It's not a lifestyle, no different than you don't have a straight lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And so people would talk as if this was a lifestyle, but it's just who you are. And it was a difficult time. People don't quite understand, even in the workplace,
No.
how difficult it was. And I've told you, even at Subaru, which is, people appear to feel as enlightened at the time. This is in the early 90s. There was a guy who worked in the mailroom, and there was a petition going around. They didn't want him delivering or touching the mail because they didn't want to get AIDS. People didn't want to get AIDS. And that was what the hysteria was around it, right? And everybody was afraid of it, and it was a terrible time. So,
but the rhetoric may have shifted a bit, but it's still okay to bang on the community, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't
Well,
matter that I'm American, that that we're all these other things. It's just
pay taxes,
like full freight tax. Not
yeah. No, I always said that. I think that was smartest
Melissa
thing. When
Etheridge
Melissa Etheridge, right? She said, "Oh, okay. If you don't want to give me equal rights, I'm not looking for special rights. I'm not looking for more rights. I want the same rights as every other citizen. And if you're not giving them to me, then why am I paying full taxes? Just let me pay 75% or 50% if I can't partake in all of the benefits of being a citizen." So I noticed something came across the wire. I haven't read it, but they were talking about in Texas now is trying to impose some law that you can now fire somebody for being LGBTQ, that they want to go back to those days.
Seriously?
That it's no longer protected. Yeah, that it's no longer protected. So there you go. That's where we are. 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. Right.
3 steps, like 10 steps. I mean, I guess it's just pay attention, folks, right? It's like, and referring to Michelangelo Signorelli, remember when his book came out, It's Not Over?
Yeah.
After gay marriage happened, guess what? He was 100% right. It ain't over.
Yeah. No, he was absolutely right. So many people dropped the ball or just figured, oh, we got marriage, we're all set. There was a group called the Equality Forum out of Philadelphia, which essentially disbanded after marriage equality. And I thought, why the heck? It wasn't equal rights or trying to get equal protections wasn't just about marriage.
No.
And it's not just about marriage. So I don't know, but you and I have said this about other things as well. We don't seem to have a national voice. GLAAD seems to have tried to step in and maybe fill the void where HRC or some others have been lacking, but we don't seem to have a national voice that's
or a personality that could
Right.
that could garner the respect of actually having a voice on the stage, right?
Yeah, Elizabeth Birch to me was kind of our last great person who would go on the circuit and go on conservative and liberal stations and present the case and I think was a good spokesperson for everybody, but we don't have that currently. So it's about time we get it, though. I think. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Pride Month, which we'll discuss. We've got some stories for our next show that we've been, as we are heading into June. but and Todd Evans will touch on this as well. But it seems to be a very different June than what we may have remember seeing in the last 5 or so years.
Perhaps more like what we used to be used to back in the 80s
Yeah.
and 90s, which was a protest march. So
Yeah, yeah. So, Mr. Nash, without further ado, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, this one isn't an interesting one. So here we go. The one of the South Park writers came up. He's a funny guy. His name is Scott Tenorman, and he's the webmaster or the troll behind a bonkers anti-woke dating site that he put up as a joke. And he's done this before. So he has a website up now called governorgregabbott.com. He goes around and he finds URLs that are available. And the governorgregabbott.com, in that site, the governor talks about he brags about his anti-trans legislation and massive cuts to critical health services, promises that he will soon release his findings on what hardcore conservatives looking. So he does this thing where he'll take a name like that and he'll create a fake site. If you go to governorgregabbott.com, it's hysterical because it's him, it's his stuff that he said. It's just framed in this way that's very not. So what he did with this one is he started a site. If you're watching on YouTube, he created a couple of ads. The first one was a woman wearing the Make America Great Again, find your perfect match, start your love story today. And then he, follows it up with this thing like, get hand-picked matches based on your values, lifestyle, and love for God and country, because meaningful connections start with shared beliefs, not shared brunch spots. If you don't see that right away as being like a little wink thing, right? So he puts this site up, and it was basically there's no money exchanged. It was a trial period, and he had a whole bunch of people sign up for this. And so he says, I'm going to quote him: "A while back, I released a fake MAGA dating website, mostly out of curiosity, expecting a few cheap laughs and red hat romance cliches. Morton wrote of the idea behind his MAGAMatch. That's what it's called, MAGAMatch. What I got instead were some truly unhinged responses from people looking for more than love. Some were hunting for a revolution, others a running mate. I'll be sharing what I uncovered in the coming days as well as the website itself. There are just a few of the pages," and then he shared a few of the pages from the site, but he said, "Buckle up." And so the sales pitch for this Tiki Torch Tinder, I love the way the writer did that. Remember the Charlottesville, the Tiki Torches? "In a world gone woke, love should still come with a spine. We match on faith, freedom, and a refusal to apologize for either. If you're looking for someone who prays hard, loves hard, and would rather die than double mask, welcome home." So that's the way he pitched the site. And it's messaging free from big tech snooping because your love life shouldn't be monitored by the deep state. So some people signed up, and here's someone's profile.
Was there an actual name for the site, or is it just an anti-woke dating?
They're calling it MAGAMatch, but I'm not sure that's the actual name for the site. Because he's planning on releasing information that he garnered from this experiment along the line. He had someone sign up, and their screen name was OKQAnon. And it says here, OKQAnon is only looking for single Christian ladies who are willing to live a traditional lifestyle that's free from corrupting and uncouth concepts like posting on social media, having a career, or leaving the kitchen. Despite the logical problem that such a woman would have trouble signing up for such a dating site. And then here is another one. Curlers and casseroles are just a click away. So I am going to follow this because he said that in the next few weeks he's going to put up the actual site that he did this with, and he's going to have actual things on there. He's blurring out people's pictures. It's no real names are used, but it's the names they picked for their screen names and stuff. But there you go.
Gosh,
he actually got people to sign up with that line,
I'm speechless, I guess.
If you want to self-sort and if you want to find your MAGA match, I guess this is how you do it, right?
Wow. Well, I I'm not surprised, I guess. I'm curious, but I'm not surprised. So I guess we'll see. I wonder. So you actually could go on there and create a profile,
Yeah.
and then there's probably money to be made.
Well, he said it was how he put it was something like it's the dark underbelly. How did he put it here? He will soon release his findings on what hardcore conservatives looking for companionship really want in a partner. And he said, but it's really the dark, seamy underside of, he said, in this darkness deserves daylight.
Wow.
But he said it's almost delusional what people had put up there. And it was all like the site was fake, but these were real profiles people set up. So,
Wow. Well, mine couldn't be any more different. I had seen this come across the wire, and the headline is Marlene Dumas painting sets new record for living female artist. So a painting by a South African artist named Marlene Dumas is sold for $13.6 million last week at an auction in Christie's auction last Wednesday, entitled Miss January. It's her magnum opus, which is like her masterpiece, her great work. Stands a little over 9 feet tall, and it went for, as I said, for $13.6 million. They were expecting it to get somewhere between 12 and 18 million. Wow. And they said in this painting, Dumas triumphantly demonstrates a formal mastery of the woman's body, while simultaneously freeing it from the tradition of subjection, upending normalized concepts of the female nude through the lens of a male-centric history. So I looked at this and I thought, man, you and I are in the wrong business. I mean, to me, this looks like, if you're watching on the video, to me it looks like Courtney Love with no panties. And she's got skin knees, a club foot, chicken fat yellow hair, heavy black mascara. I mean, would you hang this in your house?
No.
I thought, and then there's another piece of her artwork because she does these portraits.
Is that supposed to be a portrait?
Yeah, and I thought, I mean, I'm no artist, neither are you, but we could sketch that. We could do that. What am I missing? I never understand this with art. I know it's subjective and all these other things about art. But anyway, I laughed because I thought she got $13.5 million for this 9-foot Courtney Love on crack with the skin knees and heavy mascara and her muff showing. I don't know. So,
well, Tim, the way you kind of deconstruct it makes it a hilarious.
Well, it's Courtney Love, isn't it?
It looks like
she's
it.
She's in this like lacy, nylon-y top. I don't see any nipple, but her definitely muff and skin knees and club foot, and got one sock on, one off. Heavy mascara. It's the Courtney Love. But of course,
imagine the new owner of the painting puts it up in their mansion somewhere, and there's people having wine and cheese, and I love this new picture. Oh, it was only 13.5 million.
Who is it? It's Miss January from Marlene Dumas. So, of course, the BBC had to chime in. There's, so the real story here was, so this is the most that a living female artist has ever garnered at an auction, and they really talked about this disparity between men and women. So they said male living artists, for instance, there was just a portrait sold the same day, went for $23.4 million. And which was a record at the time. And then there was even a bigger record in 2019 from artist Jeff Koons. He had a sculpture called Rabbit that went for over $90 million. They said that there's a gender gap in valuations that's systemic running through the art industry globally, where living female artists, their work sells for 10% of the value of those of men. Of
the male counterparts.
Right. So the big deal here was, and good for her, the big deal was for her to have garnered this price. Not my taste, but...
Clearly.
But if you look at some of the other work, John, I laughed because I thought, man, again, you and I know people that are in our particular friend, Matt, who can paint well and does good artists. And I thought, he's struggling to try to get a couple $100 at times for a beautiful picture. And you look at some of these things, like that one with the face with the nose. You see that yellow thing there?
Yeah, it could be a child.
Looks like a milk jug upside down with a pencil drawing on the face.
Yeah, if she said, "Oh, that's a picture of," if she named the person, you couldn't tell who that was. It's barely a portrait, right?
Yeah. So that's the kind of work she puts out. So So there you go, Marlene. Congratulations. We'll see what you sell next. The and we're gonna get pen and pencil and charcoal, John. See if we can get a couple things.
Just get
That in
a
a
paper
church.
bag. Get a
Roping
paper
a
bag
church
from
and a
grocery
gallery.
store, yeah.
Yeah.
Church of the
So, hey,
Focus Group. Maybe it's an
exactly.
artist colony. Yeah.
Come here and buy, please.
We can make God's eyes and do like the crude
Oh my
pictures.
gosh, macrame plant holders. So at the start of the show, we mentioned our friends at Deep Discount. They're a partner of us here on the Focus Group. Be sure to head over to focusgroupradio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo. Right now, they've got a 5-star film sale going on. So you can bring home some of the best of cinema up to 50% off. And so this was one of these where you just go through and you get on the pages and just one great movie after another. So what did you find this week, Mr. Nash?
I echo what you just said. It was every page. I was like, what am I going to pick? I ended up picking a movie that I saw and I was like, yeah, I remember watching this and I loved it. And it's a film adaptation of the famous book, The Little Prince, by Jean Exuber. I can never pronounce his last name correctly. Exubery. One of my favorite books when I was a kid and even a teenager. Lots of beautiful little philosophy.
Did you want to be a prince, John?
No. This has very little to do with royalty. I mean, this little guy. So this movie has it's animation, but it's multiple styles of animation. So it's CG or 3D kind of Pixar kind of stuff. It also has 2D animation in it, and it also has stop motion paper animation. It's a beautifully done piece. And so it's a narrative that's wrapped around the story of the Little Prince. But here's what it says. A young girl, voiced by Mackenzie Foy, being pushed into prep school by her determined mother, Rachel McAdams, befriends their elderly neighbor, who's played by Jeff Bridges. He regales her with fantastic tales of his aviator days and his desert encounter with a young prince, played by Riley Osborne, from another world, and lets her reconnect with childhood. Stop motion, CGI rendering, and it's an Antoine de Saint-Exupéry was the original author of the book. It's a beautiful movie. It's got some great voice talent, James Franco, Paul Rudd. 108 minutes, and I just think it's, if you love the book and you like animation, it's just a very affecting, they did a great job with this. So I picked The Little Prince.
Wow. Mine, I picked a compilation because I had a couple things I wanted to do, but I ended up picking up the Warner Brothers 100th 25 Film Collection, Volume 1, award winners on Blu-ray. And it's a 26 disc set, and what I loved about it, right? And it's very fairly priced at $157.90, which is a fantastic price for this. And there's also there's other volumes as well, but Volume 1, I particularly thought if you're going to do it, you might as well start with 1. And of the 26, just to give you an idea of some of the titles: Mutiny on the Bounty, The Adventures of Robin Hood, Casablanca, which you and Lauren had made fun of me about. Streetcar Named Desire. Ben-Hur, one of our clients loved Ben-Hur, would watch it every day. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Bonnie and Clyde, Bullet, One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, Purple Rain, The Color Purple, Lord of the Rings, Argo. I love Argo. A Star Is Born, among many others. So you can get this Warner Brothers 100th 25 film collection on Blu-ray. And right now during the deep discount sale for the 5-star film sales. And also hundreds of other titles are available.
It's an amazing price for a 26-disc collection.
Yeah, of all those movies. And it's incredible. So what was the new release this week, Mr.
This is a movie that I actually really do want to see, and I'm going to order this. It's called Queer, and you might remember it when it came out. It stars Daniel Craig, and here's the synopsis. It's 1950. Daniel Craig plays William Lee, an American expat in Mexico City. Spends his days almost entirely alone, except for a few contacts and other members of the small American community that are there. His encounter with Eugene Allerton, an expat former sailor, new to the city, shows him for the first time that it might be finally possible to establish an intimate connection with somebody. This movie got great reviews. It did fairly well at the box office. I'm dying to see it because I missed it when it was out. But I love Daniel Craig. We all know him as James Bond, but he's an actor with a very good range, and I think this. And so there's scenes in the movie where he's talking to this young guy, and there's a shadow or like a ghost-like version of him that touches the guy's hand, and it's that represents his intent or his desire. So it's a really well done film from what I understand, and I'm dying to see it. They have it here at deep discount on Blu-ray for $30. I would say pick it up, especially with the themes you and I have been encountering. Right? It's pride. We just talked about Freddie Mercury earlier. Good time to
this one missed me. I didn't recognize this from having been released in the theaters. So I'm glad that it was a new release pick this week.
Yeah, it's a focus. It's a it's a new release,
Yep.
featured new release. All right, so focusgroupradio.com is where you want to go. You can click on the deep discount logo to start your shopping experience. And as Tim said at the beginning of our segment, it's a 5-star film sale. Every page of this particular sale has something you're going to want to get right off the bat. I picked a movie called The Little Prince. It came out in 2021, and it's just a combination of animation styles, and it's built around the famous book The Little Prince. Beautifully done. I think it's a great adaptation. Tim picked Warner Brothers' 100th 25 Film Collection, Volume 1. This volume has 26 Blu-ray discs and an incredible amount of movies, some which Tim still needs to see, like Casablanca. And the new release this week is Queer, starring Daniel Craig. You can pick that up on Blu-ray for $30. So a big thanks to Deep Discount for being a partner of ours here on the show. Again, focusgroupradio.com. Click on the Deep Discount logo and start going down the rabbit hole. We're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we have a business birthday. Then we have an interview with Todd Evans, who is an expert on local LGBTQ media. So we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Learn all about us at focusgroupradio.com. Coming up, we've got our friend Todd Evans joining us from Rivendell Media, who talked to us about what the heck's going on in the LGBTQ media space, particularly locally, and some thoughts about Pride coming up. So without further ado, Mr. Nash, for our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So for those of you out there, our listeners that are smarter than us, which is a lot of you, this birthday had 2 dates to it. May 21st, 1870 seemed to be the most prominent one, but somebody along the way, there's also the date of October 20th, 1870. So
That's a big spread, Tim.
huge spread, I think. But we're going with May 21st because that's Wednesday, and that's today. So William Coffin Coleman, born May 21st, 1870, died in 1957 at 87 years old, was a businessman and the founder of the Coleman Company, which was a maker of camping equipment. He was also a politician. He served as mayor of Wichita, Kansas. John, you'll laugh. He was born in Chatham, New York.
Seriously?
Yeah, he was born in Chatham, New York. And the family moved in 1871, so a year after he was born. The family moved to Labette County, or Labette, I don't know how they say it, County, Kansas. And his father died young, and he didn't have much education or much schooling, so he needed to get out and do work, which often happened with a lot of people of that generation. So as he got older, he became a salesman, and it said it was very good for him because he had limited education, but he had a lot of energy and a lot of gumption. So he was selling typewriters in Alabama, and he came across a company or somebody that had lanterns, gas lanterns. And instead of using kerosene, they were using gasoline. And he thought this was a great idea. And so instead of continuing to sell typewriters, he decided to start selling and crafting his own lantern, which he called the Coleman arc lamp, which used gasoline instead of kerosene. I stopped there because I always thought these were kerosene.
Ditto.
I didn't.
Same here.
So,
Same here.
but for whatever reason, maybe gasoline was easier to get or less expensive. But for whatever reason, it caught on and did quite well. And he was able to make a company out of this, of what we know today as Coleman, which is a huge sporting goods conglomerate. So aside from the lantern, he also developed something called the GI pocket stove.
Mm-hmm.
And the military used those as well, World War I, World War II. And he ended up, while he was running the company, also decided to enter politics and was talked into running for mayor of Wichita, which he only served for 1 year. It doesn't really say what happened, why he only served for the 1 year, but he only served.
Must have been a questionable experience, right?
Right. There wasn't a lot, which I was surprised about, and I looked and looked and looked. There wasn't a lot written about him. So I went over to Coleman, the company's website, to see if they had any bio information. And so there's a few things that they mention. They said the company began selling gasoline pressure lamps in Wichita, and they provided demonstrations at a university, which was Sterling College, which became Wichita State. And the demonstration happened when there was a football game between Cooper and Fairmont football game in 1905, and he was talking about how these lanterns could be great to have nighttime games. So he actually provided, they said, gas lamps for the very first nighttime football game west of the Mississippi. And so as Coleman grew, as I said, we know him as Outdoor Recreational Products, Camping Gear. The headquarters moved from Kansas to Chicago and had upwards of 4,000 employees. They've been acquired over the years. The company's been acquired over the years. And they said today Coleman manufactures camp stoves, sleeping bags, coolers, hot tubs, generators, watches, sandals, tents, dog toys, backpacks, small boats, canoes, pontoon boats, pop-up travel trailers, snowmobiles, Hobie Cat sailboats, barbecue grills sold at Canadian Tire up in Canada. They also have a separate Coleman Heating and Air Conditioning company that sells air conditioners, window units, and part of that is owned by Johnson Controls. They also have ATVs and mini bikes, so if you can imagine.
There you go.
The company sold in 2015 to Newell Brands for $13.2 billion.
Wow.
So from him starting this little lantern Coleman arc lamp company, he grew this into of course he's dead. He died in 57, but just recently in 2015 sold for $13.2 billion. Again, this is one of these ideas where if somebody, John, you often say this, somebody sees something and they decide, let me try that, or let me do something.
I've got a
with it.
solution for that problem. Yeah.
So when are we going to do that?
Hey, believe me, we're trying. We keep our eyes peeled for that, right?
You know, I watched Shark Tank the other night, and somebody was on that. All they did is make huge, big candles.
I saw. Yeah, I know.
Did you see that one?
No,
it's a luxury
I know
candle.
You love
so
Shark Tank.
So instead of a little candle in a little jelly jar glass, they did these huge candles. I thought that's not novel, is it?
It's just a scale, right?
Anyway, so that's our business birthday. So happy birthday to, as my Shark Tank sidebar, happy birthday to William Coffin Coleman. Born May 21st or October.
You're going with May.
I'll go with May. But in case somebody don't write us and let us know it was October, everything we've seen was May. But
you're future-proofing yourself. Okay.
Future-proof. So, hey, as we mentioned, we visited with our friend Todd Evans. We've got a pre-record, and it's in our Shop Talk segment. So without further ado, stay tuned for Todd Evans with John and I to talk about LGBTQ media. Now, as promised, time for our Shop Talk segment, and we have joining us a friend of the show, Todd Evans, who's president of Rivendell Marketing. He is the leading expert in LGBTQ and HIV/AIDS media in the United States, particularly local. and he represents a number, if not most, of the LGBTQ publications and their digital extensions across the U.S. So welcome to the show, Todd.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. My favorite topic, of course.
Tim, should we do a disclaimer and say that we've known Todd for years and enjoy that friendship? And Todd, it's such a great pleasure to have you on the show with us today.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, I don't know how long you probably have known Todd longer since you used to buy so much media.
I hate
with
to
your
say it,
former
I've known
agencies.
Todd since the last century.
Yeah.
So the three old white dinosaurs are going to talk
yeah.
about LGBT. First of all, what is I hope this is a fair question, but what's the current moniker these days? Is it LGBTQ, LGBT, LGBTQI plus? What do you use?
We were like the last to change our tagline from the gay media company to the LGBT media company. But really because most of our clients are mainstream American straight and they didn't really understand. And so we've stuck with LGBT only because that's all the media, queer the Q is questioning or
Right.
queer or plus, and we're really all about just specific LGBT media content. So it keeps it tight.
It keeps it focused. So Todd, we're going to talk a little bit about some advertising and stuff like that, but you've always been a champion of local press. And I think it's fascinating because when you and I began working together, we had tons of local media. And I'm not just talking about LGBT, I'm talking about general press as well. Like we had a lot of variety of newspapers here in the city. There were the alternative press, there was the main press. And now we have an environment where local media is definitely on the ropes. And I think it's a critical problem because a lot of information was conveyed through these local papers. And it's probably even worse in the LGBT space. So what is your take on that and maybe a path forward?
Well, yes, they're all looking for diversifying revenue streams. That's for sure. And it's, the biggest challenge I have just in general with local media is it's still print first, right? It's the print that stimulates you to go to the digital site. And whenever any of the titles have stopped print, like especially during COVID, quite a few went on hiatus and said, oh, we're just going to do our digital, their traffic plummeted. So, and it's kind of a nature of our community and how we socialize, right? So everyone's coming out at different times. Everyone's into LGBT media at different times. And but what's uniting about it is when you're out socializing, that's usually where it is. And so you pick up, Outsmart in Houston, and then you might go home. You're like, oh, this is really great, but you might not get out again. So then you're going to go to their website. And a lot of LGBT media is really still about what's going on Friday night, right? Because that's really the only place you can find it, because you can't find it in national LGBT media. The deadlines are too long.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of the titles. There's definitely been a shrinkage of titles. So at one point there were over 200 in my career here, and now we're at about 125. But
Wow.
they're all the ones that you would expect. They're the ones that are tried and true, that have been around for longer than me. Most of them are over 40 years. And also they're the ones that are good business people, right? So they knew to go to digital, get their e-blast lists working and out there and no business. And I always say that the successful local LGBT titles are the good business people, because they have half the cause and half the business sense. And then you bring that together and you really have a successful title. It's the ones that are all about business and sort of lose contact with the community that got in trouble. And then it's the others that are the real activists that are great, but they don't have the business sense. And it's a business too. And they're the ones that had trouble. So I'm really comfortable where we're at now. And, an interesting thing is that we haven't really been losing a lot of titles. So I'm so proud. Like I took a pile before, knowing we were doing this today. And I'm just amazed at the amount of advertising that is in them. Right. And, the Washington Blade. So the Washington Blade, the iconic.
It's iconic. It's
Yeah.
been around forever. Yeah.
And to get around to your question, this is the worst pride I've seen in my 30 years. Okay.
In terms of ads, people buying. Okay.
National ads, right? National ads. That's my only forte is national ads. So when I'm the rep, I don't handle anything local. I only handle national ads and local media. But I've never seen anything like it. So I was talking to the publisher of the Washington Blade, and Lynn Brown said, she goes, well, Todd, we were here before there were national ads. We're going to be here if there are no national ads. We have our local sales reps, and it's the local businesses that see the impact quickest and understand it. So, if you're a new restaurant in town, you know pretty quickly if you're developing a gay clientele or not. So you really know if your advertising is working for you. And it's the same with titles. Like, how do you tell if one's successful? The ones that have a lot of ads in it, because people won't come back if they don't think it's working for them.
True. Yeah.
So how do we
go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
No, so how do we get some of the larger brands, and everybody remembers in the 90s, Absolute, for instance, Subaru was a big proponent of the local press with national ads. How do we get these brands back? And do you see any coming back?
I do. I see a lot of behind the scenes stuff. They're worried right now. The national brands everyone's afraid of a tweet from Trump of some kind, right? And they're afraid of any sort of backlash, even though, the truth is there's been plenty of right-wing boycotts over the years, and none were successful because they all came out with good statements about supporting diversity and inclusion and their customers. And they always saw a groundswell of goodwill support. The thing that did the most damage, even aside from this Trump administration and anti-DEI focus, is the Anheuser-Busch controversy. I call it a debacle because that's with the transgender influencer, they got a right-wing boycott. But instead of doing anything, they literally simply had to send out a statement that said, we support all our influencers, and she is just one of our 2,000. And, we stand for American.
She got one can.
Yeah, one can. I know. And the misinformation, right, of today. But they didn't do anything. No. And so they've got it on both sides. And I'm telling you, I will not buy an Anheuser-Busch product. And when the Super Bowl came around, I was like, oh, shit, I didn't realize Michelob Ultra was one of their brands. Now I'm not buying that one either. Right?
Do you think, Todd, do you think the reason being is that many brands we've seen figure that they could just do this with their general agency, and they don't have the expertise of somebody like you or like us that can tell them, you need to get ahead of this, and here's what you should say? Because if you're not using an agency that specializes or has expertise in the LGBTQ market, we've just sit here with our eyes wide open, our mouths open, saying, how could you stumble so much? Target was the other one who stumbled, right? They both stumbled over themselves because I don't think they had good advice internally or externally,
or a communications
with
plan
agencies,
later.
Right? A plan.
As simple as that. It's the demise of the small agencies, really, not even the LGBT specific ones. They're bought up and they're larger, and the bigger they are, sort of the less they're more concerned about, let's say, individual market segments. And yet, the only way, if you look at the demographics of the United States today, the only way to grow is through market segmentation, right? Because that's how our demographics are growing. So it will be interesting. There's a company right now I can't talk about, but it's a major company that's facing a boycott of some of their products in the West Coast. And it's all based on misinformation. And all they really need to do is come out with a proper statement and engage the right type of maybe crisis PR company. And they don't want to do it because they feel like it's going to fan the flames. And I'm appalled. I'm just aghast that people could be that silly about their own brand. It's all about, you guys are going to know this. It's all about authenticity, right? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be authentic. So I remember when Absolute got bought and Pernod Ricard took them over, and they did their first HRC equality index, and it came out really lackluster, right? But instead of hiding behind that, they came out with a statement. They said, "Hey, now we have a starting point. We're going to do better next year." And you know what?
True.
No, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, okay, well, at least they're trying, right?" And I always say about Anheuser-Busch, and it really got me this last Super Bowl because it just reminded me that nostalgia doesn't work when you're anti-American, right? When you're not standing up for American values. So all it did was remind me of the brands I don't want to buy. And I kept thinking to myself, imagine if the Super Bowl before, instead of spending $15 million on 3 commercials, they just spent the smallest amount and just said, "Hey, we're sorry, America. We didn't stand up for American values, and we really want you to know we stand for the left and the right and all of Americans, and we want you to support us as a quintessential American company." You would probably be doing a show on it, right? And the next year they would still be talking about it. It's the whole country, I really believe, is in just a failure of communication. We have all these ways to communicate, and yet people are afraid of authentic communication.
Todd, I'm with you. I just think we've descended into a culture of grievance and anger, and I'm not even sure what everybody's angry and grieving about or being upset about. But you said something earlier that Tim and I talk about a great deal, and I wonder if you have to navigate this as well. DEI is not advertising and marketing. They are two completely different things. One is an internal policy for advancement of individuals that may not have had a step up as others might have, or of just balancing your workforce to look more like the culture you serve. Whereas marketing and advertising is talking to the clients you already have, and that's the business the three of us are in. So it's always been a battle to not only sell the LGBT consumer, but to sell the concept that, hey, it's just marketing and advertising, and do it. And if you do it right, they're going to be brand loyal forever, right?
Absolutely. Absolute hasn't done much in a long time, but they still come up right at the top because people remember. I wonder how long that's going to take to wane. But another thing I've been on lately, I went back in time, right? Because like you, it was before DE&I. So I started looking at our marketing materials before then to see, how we spoke about it. And that, so I'm talking market segmentation, and I'm talking growth. But also one thing that's really come up, I've noticed in advertising circles, is universal creative, which is just another way of saying product placement, right? Mm. You don't have to have, as we got more sophisticated in the market, more people came into the market, people had to be more sophisticated or felt they needed to be more sophisticated to get a greater impact, right? It's not just an Absolute bottle. Now it's an Absolute diversity bottle. Now it's a gay couple in the ad, right? But now there are virtually no spirits advertising. You can just do a product placement. And I'm convinced whoever shows up is going to really take the cake, because people do forget. Advertising is all about reminding you, right, of your purchasing decisions. Oh, yeah, I should get that. Oh, yeah, I should do this. And another vodka is going to come in, and they're going to clean up. I'm convinced.
Well, didn't Tito's sort of do that a while ago? Like, remember you say an Absolute and cranberry was like, or an Absolute tonic was the drink. And now, if I'm at a bar, it's Tito's tonic. And I don't know how much they put into the LGBT consumer if they did that at all. But you are right. You can dethrone a brand quite easily that has years of entrenched support simply by showing up and being consistent.
You know who's on my radar right now? And I love a Cosmo, right? I just love a Cosmo. And I'm at some friend's house. I'm like, oh, how'd you make that so fast? And sure enough, they had a Kettle One has a pre-mixed Cosmo. I'm convinced they're going after the Absolute because the bottle actually sort of looks like it. And I think they have to be fools not to go after this market. And I think they could clean up in packaged goods because I'm like, this is convenient. This is what I drink. And it has.
How did it taste? How did it taste?
Not as good as Jeffrey's. Not as good as Jeffrey's. My husband's in the business. So, but good. Certainly good if you can pull it right out of the refrigerator and make your drink.
And not
take
too
it to
sweet.
the beach.
It was like well balanced.
Yeah. So it really will be interesting to see how things play out. a lot of the LGBT consumer to me is to the Black consumer, to the Hispanic consumer. I think there's just this pent up energy of people wanting to support companies that are supporting their values or supporting them. Yep. And whatever company does that, I think is going to really reap the rewards, especially now. You know, I've been doing a lot of protesting lately. I'm a big believer in getting out there. And every time I go, the crowds are bigger and better and all diverse, young and old. If you haven't done that, I highly do it. It's gonna make your heart swell. It really is. It's a time that I just really want to be around like-minded people.
Oh, completely.
And it's gonna get there. We're all gonna get there. I'm convinced of it. And I think when this pendulum swings back, gentlemen, it's going to swing back in a very big way. Because look at the diversity in LGBT media today. There's this right here. This is LGBT media, right? The eBlast, the Reverie TV, Advocate.com, you know, there's so many aspects, but all of it added together, it's just not that much. And any big brand can own it. I'll never understand why Apple doesn't own this market.
They're funny. They don't. They only do general market advertising, and they really don't specialize with niche because they just know internally that people are buying the product, right?
Yeah, until they don't. Right? Until they don't. I went to NGLCC a few years ago, and I was amazed at the number of Samsung phones I started to see. It used to only be iPhones. So I think it's at their expense if they don't step
or at their peril. Yeah,
at their peril. Yeah, I'm not good with phrase.
I know we're short on time, but the just one final thought on Pride this year. I mean, is it? We both, John and I, have noticed and talked about it, particularly with World Pride and the mess that's going on with our administration in D.C. Are there, in response to your importance of showing up, do you see anything on the horizon for Pride, or it just seems like we're going to limp through it this year?
We're going to limp through it. It's past really the time to do anything big because remember, in print, the deadlines come up sooner than later, and that's usually what pushes the extensions to the digital. I'll be as surprised as you, anything I don't see, but I can tell you this. I can't think of one thing in this office that's really been Pride related. I've just never seen that. And it's kind of like everyone's depressed. And I mean, the marketers themselves used to be able to get their ERGs and stuff excited about going and stuff. And I just don't see that. I think that you guys will know this, right? From Subaru and Absolute, even most of the biggest campaigns came from champions within the company. True, and I think they're all laying low because everyone's afraid in this economy. And
no one wants their head chopped off.
Yeah. It used to be. That used to be the old joke, you did a great job on it, you got promoted off of it. Right? And then you were head of European something, and it would be I'd be oh, there goes my contact, my champion, right?
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point, and we're going to have to wrap it up there. I want you to tell our audience how to reach you. It's Rivendell, but you can give us the stats there.
Sure. So best way to reach me is Todd at rivendellmedia.com. It's RIVENDELL media.com. That's absolutely the best way. I'm on TikTok. You can find me there. And pretty much anything on social or LinkedIn, you'll see us pop up. Just Google search LGBT media or local LGBT media, and we should come right up.
Excellent. Todd, I want to thank you for joining us today. I think we can do this conversation. Tim, perhaps we should do once a quarter as an update for
particularly a follow-up mid-year, I think would be important.
All right. Thank you, Todd.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, great to see you.
All right. A big thanks to Todd Evans, who's the president and CEO at Rivendell Media. They are experts on LGBTQ and HIV/AIDS media in the United States. We think of Todd as the local media expert. Well, he's the LGBT media expert, but he really knows the local press really well. It was a pleasure to catch up with him. And we want to thank all of you for joining us today here on the Focus Group. We want to remind you that our partner Deep Discount has a 5-star sale going on. I picked The Little Prince. Tim picked a Warner Brothers collection that has 26 discs. Was it the 100th anniversary, Tim? Was that the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, 100th anniversary.
And the new release this week is Queer, starring Daniel Craig, a movie it was under Tim's radar, was on mine. I didn't get to see it, but I'm dying to see it, so I think that's a good one to pick up. We want to remind everybody, especially with summer driving picking up, don't text and drive, arrive alive, please, because we want you here next week when we do the focus group. So have a great week, and we'll see you after the holiday.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.